So I'm here today with Hans Franke. I probably didn't say that correctly, but I did my best. And we're going to talk with Hans a little bit today. He is based in Germany. And Hans, maybe you could start out just by telling us where you're located and what you do these days.
Oh, hello. I'm based in Munich, which is, well, I guess everybody knows Oktoberfest and so on. That place, beside having a festival once a year, there's still a large city around, including computing industry, and about 5 million people in the region. And me is one of them. I'm retired by now because I was fed up by big business. So I decided it's just better to just play with my computers than do jobs for
There,
anyone else.
there you go. There you go. That's I'm in the same boat here, so I can appreciate that. So tell us a little bit about yourself, how you got involved with what are now vintage computers.
Well, you know how I got first to computers?
Uh-huh.
Um, in the late 60s, early 70s, we got a Bavarian TV channel. You know, back then Germany had 2 TV channels. That's it for the whole nation.
Oh,
So
wow.
Bavaria got their third one, and it was, of course, all these high rising goals. It was for education and so on. So the whole afternoon was filled with distant university lectures. And one of these lectures was about computers. And now imagine an 8-year-old sitting with a squared paper and painting down punch card hole combinations. That's my first contact with computers. And yeah, got trained in power electronics later on. Switched for computing, computer maintenance, mainframe, where they very soon realized that I'm not the kind of reliable working drone they would need. But luckily, I found a secure haven in a not really official programming team, designing an ERP solution on mainframe back then. And yeah, that was my way for the next 40 years. So
So how did you
classic
get involved
370
with
programming.
home computers? How did you that start? What was your first home computer and
Uh, well, you see, I had, as I said, an apprenticeship as in power electronics. And, you know, like 17, 18 years old guys are, they tinker around with the stuff they know. And among us, it was the time of early TTL and so on. So the one using the biggest chips is, of course, king of the road. So a CPU got 40 pins. So there's nothing bigger than 40 pins. So that's how I got my first CPU, Valvo 2650, which I built, well, very rough computer from. 64 bytes of RAM. The ROM was made of single diodes and altogether soldered with a 70-watt soldering iron, because that was I had at home. So, well, you use
did
what's
did
there.
did you say 64 bytes of RAM?
Yeah, 64 bytes was 2 chips. There's a
Wow.
TTL 74, okay, we don't remember the number, of 64 by 4-bit RAM. Take 2 of them and they get 64 bytes. I didn't know anything about computers, but I had a TTL handbook. So I selected what I found. Seriously, it was just the beginning. And yeah, that was my first computer. The next that got me is a Kim. and after that, an Apple II. So I'm an Apple II bloke.
Do you still have those two original computers that you had back then?
The 2650 I did throw away, or it got lost in moving. I don't know. I no longer have it, but the Kim I still got, and the Apple II, of course. The Apple II is still sitting on a shelf and working.
So is it actually one of the original Apple IIs? It's not a Plus, it's not an E?
Well, it's a 2 Euro Plus. It's from the
Okay.
very first batch of the new factory set up in I think it was 79 in Ireland. Apple did set up a factory in Ireland for European distribution. I think it was in 79. And the one I got was from the very first batch, and I paid way too much money. Just imagine, I was a total nope, yeah. So I knew I wanted something. I couldn't really decide between an Commodore PET, which okay. There's one thing: apprenticeship. The workplace was on the other side of the city, so I had to cross the city center every day. On the way back, I usually stopped, this is around 77, 78, at a large department store, Kaufhof, which had in their basement 3 Commodores sitting, which of course was like a free play place for us. So there was already a bunch of people gathering there every day, programming these 3 machines. They made good big business in selling us compact tapes. Yeah, so I was thinking about getting me a Commodore. Then I walked along a computer store, and there was a TRS-80 Model 1. And do you remember the Dancing Demon demo?
Yeah, absolutely.
Imagine a 17-year-old, was it 17? 18-year-old, yeah, standing in front of the shop for like half an hour, watching that bulky figure dancing around. It was just awesome. I guess unimaginable for today, but it was like out of this world. I mean, Tron wasn't that good as the Dancing Demon.
So who actually sold the TRS-80 Model 1s? Were there Radio Shacks there?
No, at that point, no. There was okay, what was the name? Computerland. There were just a few new Computerland stores opening in Germany. The first one in Munich. They tried to sell, well, they tried to get an upscale image. So they had a shop in one of the most expensive locations in Munich, which of course is right in the middle of the city. So I saw there this TRS-80 standing in front. So the next day I went in the shop and just asked around, and they had an Apple II set up there. Imagine a 2 Plus with dual floppy drives, a color screen, and back then the graphics tablet. And they just let me play around, so I took the pen. Ooh, there's crosshair moving. And I could do a point and then draw along, and there's a line moving, and tack and tap, bap, bap, drawing some simple figures. I was just blasted off. The very next day, I went to my bank, got a credit. You know, I had at that time, and as apprentice, I got about 400 marks a month. So that was all I had. I went to the bank, got a 3,000 mark loan to get me the basic 16K Apple. There was just, I was completely stunned this day. Walked in the next day, got me the Apple. I guess the sales clerk realized how much I'm outside of my mind. So he tried to sell me a 16K upgrade for 120 marks. That was the moment my brain kicked in again. Of course, this is just 8 4116 chips. And these were at that time already down to like 9 marks. So 8 times 9 is less than 120. Don't screw me. So I took the basic machine, way overpaid, because I could have gotten it on some mail order or other ways for like half the price or 2/3. But
Wow.
I wanted it. I just wanted it. So yeah, I went home. Next day, I went into an electronics store and got me the chips. So I had 48K.
There you go. Okay. So did
Well,
you own any other personal computers after the Apple II, or did that pretty
well,
much go ahead?
I used the Apple II for a long time. I got me a Sharp 1250 pocket computer,
Oh,
which
okay.
is I think one of the Tandy 3 or
Yeah.
something like that.
Yeah.
Whatever, which was
PC3.
nice. I have to look it up because Tandy bought anything from Casio and Sharp and mixed it up. Well, it's the Sharp 1250. It was the 1250, which was nice because it got a lot of memory. And I spent countless hours finding peek and poke commands, which were not in the menu. So there it goes. And in 80, was it already 83? 80, no, yeah. In 83, I got me, in March of 1983, I got me the first computer I didn't need and I didn't have to have. Well, wrong. Computer I didn't need and wasn't an actual machine, but I have to have it. An original PET. Of course,
Okay. All
used
right.
at one of these, how do you call them? Advertisement papers, was advertised for like 300 marks. At that time, I had already a regular income, so it was a no-brainer. Just getting the machine I was standing in front of at the department store in 77. In 84, I got me an IBM PC clone this time, with hard disk and a lot of add-ons for like half the price of the base unit of original IBM, which I only used to compile programs. Because back then I did some freelancing development, and the development itself I did on the Apple II using Turbo Pascal, then transferred the source over to the IBM, recompiled it, and gave it to my IBM customers. So it was just a compiling station at that point. Yeah, then where was the next? The next real switch happened to the Atari ST, which I got me one of the very first units delivered, still without the operating system in ROM and so on, and the piggy-packed RAMs. Old-time Atari geeks will remember.
Oh, yeah. Nice. Do you still have that machine?
Sure.
So,
The only
so
one
you
I'm
went,
missing is the original 2650.
so you went from the IBM PC and then you got an Atari ST after that. That's interesting.
Yeah. Oh, come, please. The IBM PC is, I'm looking for friendly words. It's a crappy thing. Sorry. I mean, let's be honest. A 4 megahertz 88 is for character handling exactly as slow as a 1 megahertz 6502. The only advantage this machine has is 16-bit registers. Otherwise, it's slower than the Apple II. So for most jobs, you have no advantage with the IBM PC. So the IBM was really only used for business at that point, because I had customers who wanted to have software for their IBMs,
Sure.
which they bought without any reason, just because good salesmen.
Okay.
Yeah, the first IBM really to work with, or well, the first PC to work with was a Siemens PCD. I got in like 85 or 80, 86, about the same time as the Atari ST, which is a 186 based machine, which is it's originally developed as a Unix workstation, but they just threw out the memory management unit and added Microsoft DOS. So it became a really nice DOS machine. 100% DOS compatible, 0% hardware compatible. Have things like 900K free RAM, which is acceptable for a machine, for a PC.
Did you ever do anything with that ST as far as any development for it, or what did you use
Yes,
it for?
I did some programs for customers, which I sold machines plus software for them,
Okay.
because the ST was just superior to anything the PC could offer. I mean, you had this crisp, clear, black and white screen, and you got all of that at like a third of the price of a comparable IBM.
Yeah, and I know the ST was big in Germany. I mean, it was it seemed to sell well there, and there was a lot of development that occurred there. So,
Well, it hit the right market spot. The PCs weren't there. Okay, given the 68,000 is again not really a fast CPU, but the whole package at a affordable price, getting 1 megabyte or more, getting a hard disk drive, getting a real good black and white screen, and a GUI-based operating system, all below 3,000 marks, was an offer. Way better than anything else. And unlike the Amiga, you could really do professional work with the ST. It was like the desktop publishing machine in Germany.
yeah, it was. So, did you never had an Amiga then?
No, only way later for the collection.
Gotcha. Okay. Well, let's go ahead and switch over to VCF Europa, which I know you have some involvement in and some knowledge of. Could you tell us what your involvement is with that particular show?
Well, I'm the producer. That means I'm the guy renting the hall every year. And yeah, that's basically it. Of course, it's a community run show. I'm just the one doing the stupid comments when everybody's running around.
So how did that get started? I know that's been around for a while. How did that actually get started?
The first VCF in California, organized by Salam Ismail, was in '98, if I'm right. And I stumbled across on the web in like the last day or the first day after the show. And I was really mad about myself not finding it before. Found it using Alta Vista, if that tells anything. This is pre-Google times.
Right.
And yeah, so I just wrote him a letter, a mail. If there's still one of the T-shirts if I still can get one of the T-shirts. And he replied. We had a friendly communication, and somehow it instantly worked out between the two of us. So I decided to go the next year to VCF, the second VCF in California, which was in October '99, I think. Was it? Yeah, September or October 99 in San Diego. Stayed with Salam and helped him doing the show. And of course, I had to do that in Munich also. So the idea came up, we have to do it. When I returned, I just looked out for a place to do, a venue to start it. Got lucky finding something I could afford, put up a web page, and the rest is history. So 20-something years of VCF following.
Yeah,
Until VCF California stopped, I was also, sorry?
Say it's a long time.
Yeah. I tried to stop it several times. Unlike Salam, I couldn't because the people were always coming up and going, oh, well, we have to do one more. So this is why I'm saying I'm just organizing the venue, because it's really a community effort over here. It's just everybody coming up, building the show, making the show, taking it down, and that's it. I'm just doing the webpage, which is notoriously late. So the webpage for next year is still not done. It's still showing last year's texts.
So when is the next show? The 2024
26th show? Of April, last weekend in April. The date was originally set to be like half a year away from California, so people have a chance to visit both. And it's also like the first time when Munich really gets warm again. It's also usually the week we have Frühlingsfest, which is, think of Oktoberfest, half the size, just for locals. And all other things in the city. So if anyone comes with his wife or family, there's enough for them to do instead of just being bored by computers.
Right. Like my wife, she goes to the shows with me, but she doesn't actually go to the show. She goes shopping, around there. So
That's
sounds
the
like
best way.
So Munich, I'm sure, has a lot to offer in that regard, I would think.
Well,
so
if you want to spend money, yeah, the city is happy to take it.
I'm sure. So how big is the show actually? I've never really researched that show much. How many people do you get coming each year?
It depends. It's usually between 400 and 500 visitors, plus about 30 to 50 exhibitions.
That's
we
pretty
try
good.
To keep it small, because see, the problem is getting a venue in Munich which is affordable. The city is rather expensive, and I can't really spend a lot of money without any chance to get it back. So we rather keep it in check and have less advertisement. Because the other problem is, if I have a small venue and a lot of people come, I have to close it down, which is again not a good idea.
Because you could exceed the allowed capacity?
Exactly. Once we had that in, I think it was like the 5th or 6th, which I think we ended up with 800 tickets sold, and the whole Saturday afternoon we had to close it off and no longer sell any tickets, and already put up barriers on the street, so nobody's going onto the parking lot, which wasn't funny.
Oh, wow. Okay. Huh.
Well, we got a new sports hall. We're in a sports hall and they got a new hall, and maybe we got room to extend next year. So maybe it gets a little bit bigger next year.
Nice. I'd love to get over to that sometime.
Well, just take a plane. They are flying again.
Sure. I'll just hop on a plane. What sort of things so if someone who attends a show I don't know how familiar you are with the US based shows, but what sort of things might you see, at your show that might be different than what you would see in the US show?
Well, I was co-producer over the California years, so for more than 14 years in the US.
Oh, okay.
So it is quite similar because the basic idea is the same. It is about a show made for visitors, not for the nerds themselves. We want to show average people how great it is to be down in the basement. And accomplished by a series of speeches, which are less about the usual hobby topics, more about the cultural impact. But of course, also technology and projects and whatever. So it should be still very similar to the US VCFs. Except, of course, you might see some computers which are less common in the US, like English machines, like, the Amstrad CPC series, or East German machines, or things like that.
Right. Yeah. That I would bet that you would see more of those machines than you're going to see, at a US show, and that would be interesting. Very well might see things that you just never see over here.
Yeah, it's rather leveled out. I mean, USPS is working since a quite long time, so anybody in the US can buy a European computer and vice versa.
Yeah, that's true. That is certainly true. So is there just the one VCF Europa in Munich, or are there other shows in
Well,
Europe as well?
there's the original VCF in Munich. Then we have a spin-off in Berlin and one in Zurich, Switzerland. We had twice a venue in Italy. We had another one in Winterthur in Switzerland and near Bern once, but they really didn't take off. The thing is, if you want to implement the VCF at a new location, you need a dedicated team doing the work. Because we're, at least here in Europe, we're not working as a professional for-profit system. So it's all about the people who want to spend their time to get it running. So you need a dedicated team which does it not just once, but 2, 3, and so on times. So it takes time to build, and doesn't happen everywhere. There are other classic computer meetings in Europe, of course, but only one VCF.
What are these other classic computer meetings you're referring to? You mean user groups?
No, it's like there's, for example, near Munich in Seeshaupt, a yearly show in September, every year in September, the Eccentrics, which is I think it's even 1 year older than the VCF. They meet every year, but it's more like a user meeting. Everybody comes, puts up his computer, and plays around. It's not a show toward visitors, which is the big difference between VCF and other meetings.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah. Okay. I guess are there a lot of user groups in Europe that you're aware of?
Yeah, quite some. I mean, people had computers, and some still remember fondly their time when they were sitting at their children's room and playing whatever. There's, of course, the usual huge Commodore 64 community, but other systems as well.
Okay. So let's move into another area. I know that you have a museum that you have built and you are working on. Can you tell us about that? How did that get started?
Well, that got started because of my collection. I mean, I told you I got the first machine in March '83, which I didn't need.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it was a downward road from there. Um,
Yeah.
you know, that was the late '80s when the all this 8-bit stuff was sold out. So you could go in a shop and find some hardware add-on, which was like incredibly expensive just a year ago for $10.
Yeah.
What would you do?
Yeah.
Pass it?
No kidding. Yeah.
No, because you always wanted to have that. And even
Right.
if it's for a computer you don't have, it's cool. You have to have it. And then the early 90s was the time of flea markets where everybody was selling off their C64 or whatever they had, where you could really get a C64, full C64 setup for like $5. That's today's money, $2. So yeah, I'm a weak person when it comes to collecting computers. It's a curse. So at some
It's not,
point, yeah.
I was just gonna say it's not as simple or as inexpensive to acquire those sorts of things today.
Now it's people paying ridiculous prices for common crap. Um, Look, a C64 is built in what, 10 million pieces? 15 million? Taken all together is at least more than 10 million. Yeah. That means this computer is common as dirt. So there is no need to pay more than $5 for a C64 because the next one is just around the corner. Even today, they're still today so common. On the other hand, finding lesser common computers is maybe harder, but they come again at prices which are incredibly low. My best example is an eBay hit I did around, that must be something like 2005. You may have never heard of an EPCA familizer.
No.
It's a very, very, very early 6502 kit. It's basically the same time as the first Kim. It got a 2-digit display only.
Wow.
It was a training kit, yeah, and it's absolutely beginning. It is incredible rare. It was sold on eBay with huge 4K pictures, which was for early 2000s huge. Yeah. Very, very great pictures. You could read every chip, every detail. It was really perfectly sold. Starting price, $5. I just put in $5 just to see where it will skyrocket. Guess what? I got it.
You're serious? Wow.
Yes.
That's amazing.
And that is the thing. Everybody knows about a C64. So people paying ridiculous prices for C64s or Amigas or whatever. But the real true treasures, they still go for, hey, take it. And that is one of the things I never really understand, but yeah.
Yeah. So
I'm happy it's the way.
Back to the museum a little bit. So is it actually open to the public or is that something you're still working on?
No, we're still working on, it might be laughable, but we're working on the tables because we have a special design for the tables and we still need to weld them, and get the materials and so on. So there is some work still to be done. And of course, we need to work on the software side, because we want to make the museum, well, museum, it's just an exhibition. We have just a very small place. And so we're not doing an all-out museum. We're doing a themed exhibition. And we want, of course, present that in a way in many levels, which also includes creating some software, which none of us had time by now. So it might take a few more months until we're done.
So when do you actually expect to open it to the public?
Sorry, could you repeat that? I have no idea. I have no idea.
You have no idea? Whenever you get done, whenever it's ready.
Right. That's whenever it's ready. Well, the problem is the whole idea is a little bit on an off location for me. I'm sitting in Munich. I had my collection in Munich, and I had to move it out of the city because I couldn't afford the rent over here anymore. So a friend helped me finding a location like 2 hours out of the city, which is fine. We had several lorries getting our stuff over. And when that was done, he asked me, well, if you got all your stuff here, don't you want a museum out here in my area? And stupid me said, yeah, why not? So the whole thing, the Computeum, which is the name, is located in Vilshofen. Vilshofen is an old city at the Danube River, about 20 miles from the Austrian border. That's about a bit more than 100 miles from Munich, 120 miles from Munich. And so that's a good 2-hour drive. Of course, half of that is on country roads.
Oh, okay, yeah.
So yeah, the early enthusiasm to drive 2 hours each way did fade rather soon.
I'm sure. So tell us about this exhibit or this exhibition that you're planning on building, or that you're currently working on building out. What is that going to include?
It's the idea is to show the people how did the PC we use today come to be. So it's the way toward the PC. We're starting out with an office setup in pre-computing times. So tabulating typewriters, mechanical calculators, very specific mechanical calculators for accounting, things like that. Telex machine. We have one of the very first fax machines, KF51, which was the first mass-produced fax machine in the 1950s for everyday, for regular people use, except it was incredibly expensive then. Then we have one analog computer, Heathkit H1, which is a nice story in itself about rarity, because at one point I thought, not just me, but a couple of friends as well, thought there are exactly 2 machines left, complete machines left. One at the Computer History Museum in Mountain View and mine. A short time later, a friend found a panel, so it was 2.5. By now, we have already knowledge of 7 existing units. And this is a computer from the 1950s, an analog computer of the 1950s. So really offbeat. And they're still surviving. So never expect the machine to be really rare. It's just relative. So the next step is almost computers like the DataPoint 2200 or the QGAL4 C4 model, which are terminals, programmable terminals, so almost computers. And then the very first desktop Unix like Olivetti 6060 or IBM 5100. Next step is microprocessors, showing examples for the 8008, 8080, Z80, 8086. Next step is the big three, Commodore, PET, well, wait, sorry, Apple II, Tandy, TRS-80 Model 1, Commodore PET. Of course, that's about the sequence they came to be sold.
Mm-hmm.
The PET shown is, by the way, a 4K model, serial number 4.
Oh,
So
wow.
it's rather early.
Very early. Yeah.
And
Almost a
I
prototype.
got the complete paperwork with it, which is, you know, Commodore has always been a very, let's say, friendly, very thrifty company. I have the complete paperwork for this PET, where you could really see the owner prepaying the whole machine. It was 100% prepaid when ordering. And then he got over a sequence of about 9, almost 10 months, 6 letters where Commodore just postponed the delivery date once more. And 5 of these 6 letters also include a section or a paper where they offered to extend the RAM from 4 to 8K if he just sends more money. I mean, what kind of business is it? They tell you you don't get what you paid for and ask you to pay more? Very reliable.
Yeah.
Anyway, and then comes a section about home computers, because everybody expects home computers in this area. And then comes the core section about the PC before the PC, which got machines like Alphatronic, Olivetti M20, Sirius 1 or Victor 1 in the US, and the original PC, which is from the viewpoint of this exhibition before the PC. Because the PC as we know it today is based on the AT. Because it was the AT which really brought the breakthrough for the IBM design. Mm-hmm. Before that, IBM was just one manufacturer of many, and others outsold the PC. In Germany and England, the IBM PC was only introduced 2 years after anywhere else in the world. Why? Because of the Series 1. The Series 1 was an 88-based machine, 5 megahertz, with high-resolution graphics, more memory, and so on, for a lower price than the IBM PC. I don't know if you remember that machine.
No,
it was developed by Chuck.
It was IBM compatible machine?
No, it was not IBM compatible. It was there before the IBM.
Oh, okay.
The design beat IBM by several months. And it was of higher performance, higher capabilities, everything better. So IBM did not sell the PC for almost 2 years in Germany and in England, because these two countries were very much had very great success with the Series 1, for the Series 1.
Series 1, so it was called the Series 1, made by whom?
Yeah.
Who was
Series.
it made by?
Well, in America, by Victor.
Okay. No, I'm not familiar with that at all.
Oh, it's a very important machine and a very nice machine. You should really look out for its clean design. It was designed by Chuck Peddle, which should tell you.
Mm-hmm.
No, he was the main designer for the Commodore PET.
Right.
Yeah, and after he left Commodore, he founded the company and designed the machine, or was one of the designers. So it's the legal heir of the Commodore PET in some ways. Yeah, in Europe it was sold as Sirius 1 and in the US as Victor.
Okay, I'm gonna have to look that up. I'm not, like I said, I'm not familiar with that at all.
Yeah. Well, also look up the Olivetti M20, which is also in that lineup, which is essentially the most sold Z8000 computer of all times. It's a PC based on the Zilog 16-bit Z8000 series. I think it was also sold as some AT&T something. Not sure right now. So there was quite a variety of machines before and with the PC, and they were all in their area more successful than the IBM. It was only the AT, and especially the cloning of the AT, giving cheap clones worldwide, what really brought the IBM design to be the standard we know of today. Because after all, if the IBM PC of '84 would have been already that success, no Amiga, no Commodore, no Amiga, no Atari, no nothing would have been there. But they were successful computers throughout the second half of the 80s, because the IBM wasn't this overall winner at the time. It only became the winner after the AT and only really took up after 90. Because that was also the time when the PCs slowly became a performance machine with the pre-86, 4086 machines.
So you have an AT, so do you have an AT in your exhibit then? It is kind of
Yes, there's an original AT, and there is a Siemens PCD4M beside, which is a clone, or compatible, call it how you want, which we put up there because it has a glass case. So you could look inside and see how it's built. So this is basically the centerpiece of the exhibition. And then there is another section, what we call the Gaul Village. I don't know, have you ever heard of the Asterix comics?
No.
Okay, you got to look it up. That is like European Culture 101. It's a French comic running since the 60s about a little village withstanding the Roman invasion. So that's why we call the area the Gaul Village, because this is about computers which were made after the IBM AT, but being not compatible to the AT, which includes things like the Atari ST or like the Amstrad Joyce PCW, which is eventually the third most sold computer in the 8-bit computer back then, because they sold almost 10 million units all the way throughout, I think, 97. The machine was in production until 96 or 97. It's an all-in-one computer. You got your screen, you got 1 or 2 floppy drives beside the screen, detached keyboard, and a printer, all in one package for a very low price. So this made it the business machine in Europe and other places in the world where there wasn't the money to buy a big PC. Very successful.
Did it have a 3-inch drive?
Yeah, exactly. This weird 3-inch drives.
Yeah. I figured as much, since they kind of embraced that.
Yeah, well, it works. And if it's a business machine, it works. You don't need to exchange games or whatever. All you want to have is your letters stored.
Yeah. Yeah, that's right. So are all the exhibit or all the machines that you have, are they from your personal collection, or have you had a lot of donations?
Some are donations specific for these exhibitions. I get donations time to time, but I say like 90% in there is from my collection,
Okay.
which is
So,
way too much crap in one hand. The
well,
interesting thing is I never really collected specific stuff I want to have. It was just stuff coming along. Maybe one
whatever you
exception.
found.
Yeah, one exception is maybe I tried to find all Apple II models there are. And there's essentially only one I'm still missing and looking for. It's the Euro Plus, the Arabic Euro Plus. There was an Apple II Euro Plus with a changed character ROM to display Arabic characters and differently labeled keyboard. Otherwise, it's essentially the same as with the Euro Plus or like the J Plus, the Japanese Apple II. It's mostly like the Japanese Apple II. It's different keyboard labeling and different character ROM.
Okay.
That one I'm still missing.
Okay.
Otherwise, I think I have all basic models.
So I'm sure, you're creating this exhibit and you're going to be showing some, quite a few machines, it sounds like. I'm sure there's a lot more that you're not able to exhibit because you don't have the space. So are you just storing those right there, or do you have a warehouse or something?
I have a separate warehouse rented. The main location is about 800 square meters. What's that? 9,000 square foot. About 10 foot high, filled with crap.
But
it's
nice
ranging
crap.
From a ZX81 all the way to small mainframes.
Gotcha. Yeah. So I'm curious, with your vast experience and involvement in the vintage computer community, have you ever met any what I would call an icon of the early computer days?
What do you call an icon?
Somebody like a Wozniak or Bill Gates or those sorts of people.
Yes. I mean, they are just people. So
Sure.
you meet them over time.
Yeah.
And especially if you're doing some shows or attending shows or attend dinner with someone, then other people show up. It's just regular. So yes, I did meet a few things you would call icons. Few people you would call icons. Sorry. Crappy English.
So can you be a little more specific? I guess I'm curious. Did you ever meet Woz?
Yeah, I think like 2 or 3 times. We had dinner once.
Nice.
He's a real nice guy.
I've heard that. Yeah.
And it's easy to connect with him on a engineering level. So talking about real stuff, not just fantasy.
Yeah. What about his partner, Steve Jobs?
Met him once on was also on a dinner organized by the Computer History Museum, because we've been there on I don't know what it was. I've been there by chance, and some people met up and we had dinner. With all. I remember Lee Felsenstein very well. He's a real nice guy.
I've talked with Lee
Ray Holt
on the podcast. Mm-hmm.
Oh, that's cool. That's cool. Ray Holt.
Oh, okay.
The guy with the F14 computer, the one doing the Jolt computer. Yeah, well, names. I'm not great in name dropping.
What about Bill Gates?
I
Did you ever
did
get a
meet
chance
I
to
did
meet
meet
Bill?
Suse once. Sorry,
Who did you say?
I did meet Konrad Zuse once.
Yeah, and that
That was
is
very interesting. That is the man who built the very first floating point computer.
okay.
Zuse is that
Cool.
one. Might look it up. It was even mechanical, the one, then the three as electromechanical. He invented the single step carry ahead about 15 years before it, 20 years, almost 20 years before it got patented in the US. Yeah, so which is a nice example. Stuff got reinvented all the time. See, this is one of the things I really hate. People looking for the first of something. There is no first. There's development.
Mhm.
So calling something the first is always arbitrary, tied to a definition, what you think about being first or not first.
You're right.
And even if something is first, it just means someone talked about it first, not really that it did it first. It's just recorded it first and so on. So, you know, I'm really more about finding out about connections than defining these hit lists about first, second, third.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I mean, everything builds on things that comes before it, right? I mean, it's all, and somebody may get the notoriety that they did it first, but you know, in reality, that's not always the case. Someone else may have had that same idea earlier. It just didn't get the same
Publicity.
publicity. Exactly. Yeah, you're right.
Well, you just look at the very first thing. We're calling our actual computers von Neumann architecture, usually. You know that the famous paper where all of this based on and where people thinking he invented it is nothing else than a write-up what he saw at the ETSEC development. He just wrote down what others were doing at the time. Well, he is now cited as the one inventing that, or at least having his name tied to this type of computer. Yeah, so it's it needs a closer look. Everything needs a closer look before arguing.
So for your museum is, I assume you have some help. People are helping you put this together. What
yeah,
could
there's a small group.
Go ahead.
There is a small group helping. Of course, we always could have more help, especially right now with the tables to get the material, to do the welding, but also to do the software. Because I want to have in the 90s, you would have called it a multimedia display. I want to have something where people not speaking the language of the main explanation papers, of the main posters, being able to read it, but in an edited version, not in that what Google Translate gives you, which is sometimes really awful. Yeah, and also the spreading the idea of the museum, because this right now is just an exhibition. What I really want is a replicatable museum. See, we're living in the age of copying. Everything is mass-produced and copied nowadays. The computer you use is made in 1 million pieces and made up from thousands of the same chips everywhere else are used. The software you use is copies of copies. I mean, even starting a software is copying. We're citing memes, which are just copying pieces of text and pictures or videos and building our culture around. So why do we still believe that a museum has to be the one big thing? Why not bringing a museum down to the people, where the people are, smaller museums, which are all taken from a basic drawing, like a franchise, except not as uniform as McDonald's, okay? There should be still a little difference between each thing, but wouldn't it be great if every small city of like 50,000 people get a Computeum where school people could go not just once in 9 years, but every year or several times a year to learn? So that is the long-term goal of the museum, making a concept which could be spread out over the country and maybe further, showing old technology as a base to tell about today's world.
Nice.
Okay. I'm
Sounds
getting
like a
off
grand
track.
goal. Sounds
Yeah, that
like
is
a
about
grand
the
goal.
far for.
Yeah. All right. Well, Hans, I think I'm out of questions here. Anything I should have asked that I didn't ask about?
I don't know. I'm of course still doing a little bit hard in software, mostly retro computing related, of course. Like right now, I just did a little USB keyboard for new old computers. So essentially everything keyboard handling inside a RP2040 and having a simple 8-bit parallel interface for classic computers or new classic computers, 8-bit computers, which get a cooked keyboard interface like back then, but to modern devices. Like you could plug up any PC keyboard, things like that. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, nice.
Oh,
That
you should. Have you ever been to the retro computing section of Stack Exchange?
Stack
There,
Exchange. No,
yeah,
that's
there is
not.
a retrocomputing.stackexchange
Mhm.
.com, which is very interesting to, if you got any questions about classic computers, usually technology and history related. It's an interesting place
I didn't
with some
realize that
interesting
was a,
personas. Sorry?
yeah, I didn't realize that was a good resource.
Oh,
So
it is.
thank you for that.
There are
Uh,
a few real deep down nerds in there. So even
all
for
right.
uncommon.
Anything you want to say to the listeners before we sign off?
Well, it was great to be here.
Great to have you.
Thank you.
It was, I really appreciate Simon McCullough hooking us up, and he got to actually visit you and see some of your stuff, and he was pretty excited about it. So
No, he's a real nice guy.
yeah,
Yeah, it was pleasant to have him around.
yeah, he's a member. We're a member of the Indianapolis Computer Club, so he always brings a lot to every meeting. He's got a lot of stuff. He's got a pretty big collection himself. So
Cool. Well, I keep it in mind next time around.
yeah, I mean, if you ever come to the U.S., we'd love to have you come to one of our computer meetings.
Yeah, well, I stopped coming to the US around 20, I think it was 2010 or 2011, when this Disneyland fee was introduced, because I was a bit fed up, but that's a different story.
Okay. All right. Well, sir, I appreciate your time, and I will let you know when this gets published. You can
Cool.
decide if you want to listen to it or not. And really great meeting you. I appreciate it.
Thank you very much. It was fun to be with.
All right. I will catch you later.
Yep.
Thank you.